On Friday last week, a guy called Sol Klein, who's, among other things, a venture capitalist, who most famously was one of the first investors in Skype. On Friday, he wrote an article in The Guardian about the government digital service and called it the best startup in Europe we can't invest in. That's quite an odd thing for someone to be saying about a government department, basically. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today and a little bit about some of the projects we're working on and how that relates to service design. As Sarah said, my name is Ben. I'm Head of Design at the Government Digital Service. This is Rohan. He is one of the service managers at DVLA. If you're not from the UK, that's the Driver Vehicle Licensing Agency. So it does all cars and lorries and stuff. He's leading managing the services there for our digital exemplars. We're going to do that slightly awkward two-people thing. There's no perfect way of doing that, so forgive us if there's anything clunky. I'm basically going to give you a quick overview of GDS. Rohan's going to show you some actual design work that's going on with some of our digital exemplars, some alpha stuff, some beta stuff that's happening right now. So to give you the quick story about GDS, 3 years ago, a lady called Martha Lane Fox, who's a .com entrepreneur, started lastminute.com. She wrote a report for Francis Maude, who's the Minister for the Cabinet Office. It's a brilliant report. It's really short. It's like 10 pages. It's like a long letter, really. And her report called for revolution, not evolution. It's really crucial. She didn't say, just do a bit of this, do a bit of that. She said, we need a revolution in this stuff. Her report was looking at all government digital stuff, IT, websites, the whole thing. Originally, her report was supposed to be about direct government business link, but she went way further than that and said, look at the whole thing. That was 3 years ago, 14th of October, so 3 years ago last month. Her report was really short and made some really clear recommendations. One of those was that there should be a single place for all government services and information online. Previously, there was over 2,000 government websites. She said there should just be one, and not 2 or 4, or there should just be one. She said to achieve that, you need to do 4 things. One is set up something at the heart of government called the Government Digital Service to do this stuff centrally. 2, fix publishing. So by publishing, we mean news and announcements and stuff about policies and kind of government department websites, if you like. 3, fix transactions. So that's the stuff that Rohan and other guys are doing now. So things like renewing your car tax online, applying for a passport, self-assessment, all those things as transactions. And then 4, go wholesale. That kind of means opening that up, having APIs, that kind of stuff. But she said those are the 4 things that you need to do. Second picture of the day outside number 10. The reason she said put GDS at the centre was, for those of you that don't understand the inner workings of the UK government, the Government Digital Service is part of the Cabinet Office. That's really important because the Cabinet Office sits at the centre of government, and the job of the Cabinet Office is to make government work better, effectively, make the sort of machinery of government work better. And our bit is to make the digital machinery of government work better. And being in the centre and being right at the heart means we can get stuff done and we can, influence the right people and help out. So that was another one of the crucial things in her report. That was 3 years ago. Francis Maude, unusually for these kind of government reports, just accepted that and said, yep, go and do all that, basically. Normally they say, do a bit of this, do a bit of that, write another report about this, write a bit of that. But her report was really short, and Francis Maude said, yep, do that. So roughly 2 years ago, 2 years, 2 months, something like that, but if you stick with my thing to help me explain it. 2 years ago, we set up GDS, set up the Government Digital Service. That's what it looks like. I guess it looks like a startup or many of your offices. One of the things we did early on, they actually had, before we started it, they'd released an alpha of that single domain, of what one place for government would look like. If we got rid of all 2,000 websites, made one, what would that look like? About 12 people made an alpha. And we kind of touted that round to show people it wasn't scary, it could work, it would be fine. Then we started making the beta, and we launched that sort of quietly, really, but we made a beta and we launched that. And then we did these, our design principles. And I thought they were worth sharing because, they're great and they're worth reading and they get lots of traction. It's really just an internal document for us, but because we believe in being open, we published it to the web, the URL's down there, and they really took off. Tim O'Reilly is a huge fan of them. They kind of flew around the internet. The first one's got an asterisk because we wanted to do these principles, but we wanted them to have examples, and they're not just principles. We wanted to say, this is the principle, this is why we believe in it, here's an example of where we've done that. So if you click on them, it gives you examples and it links to other stuff. If you click on the first one, it says start with needs, and then underneath it says user needs, not government needs. What is the user trying to do, not what does the government want them to do, or not what is the government process, or not what is, this is the process we've already got, so we have to do it this way. It's what is the user trying to do, that's what we should be doing. And that's the first thing we should do. Before we do anything else, work out what the user need is. And that's really important. And lots of people, lots of organisations have got principles, statements like this. I think the really important thing about ours is that they're being used and they're kind of being championed by people all across government. I'm going to play you a quick video now of our Minister Francis Maude in the House of Commons answering a question. It's not a great question, it's a typical sort of parliamentary, you know, I think this, what do you think, sort of question. But his answer is great, and I just want to play that to you.
Of the Government Digital Service, which is committed to ensuring that as we reform the delivery of public services, they are designed around the needs of the user, rather than has been far too often the case in the past, being designed to suit the convenience of the government.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that he says that. And he says it in response to a question, and he says it in the House of Commons, and you know, because that's all filmed, we've all got that. That's a link to the video. It's on my Flickr actually. But please use that in your organisations. If you have people that don't understand that user needs are important, or focusing on users is important, play them that video. You know, whether it's your CEO or board members or whatever, say, well, you know, this guy thinks it. Your thinking is behind his. But so we use that a lot. I'm going to speed up a bit. Okay, so 1 year ago. We launched gov.uk. That was the single domain for government. We turned off DirectGov, the big citizen-facing one. We turned off BusinessLink, the business-facing one. We had no departments on there a year ago, but we closed those two big sites. That's what it looked like. That is what launching a government website looks like these days. That's launch day. And then I'm just going to play you another video that explains about gov.uk, which will just save you having to listen to me.
Hi, I'm Adi Adiwumi. I work at the Government Digital Service, and I'm here to tell you about gov.uk. We launched gov.uk in October 2012. It replaced the two big central government websites, DirectGov and BusinessLink. The idea was to make something simpler, clearer and faster, something focused on users. Firstly, we took a careful look and worked out what services and information we actually needed to deliver. We thought, for instance, that we could probably stop spending taxpayers' money telling people how to haggle when abroad, or how to identify different kinds of waves. We eliminated thousands of pages that no one ever visited. Then we made sure that the information we were providing was as easy to find and to follow as possible. This, for example, is the page on DirectGov that tells you about bank holidays. Now, it has all the information you need, and you'd think it'd be hard to do it better. But looking at how people actually use the site, we realised that what most people were searching for was the date of the next bank holiday. So we put that right to the top of the page, big and bold. We've done the same thing to more complex tasks, like working out how much maternity pay you're entitled to. Before, on DirectGov, you'd need to read all this information. On gov.uk, you just need to answer a few simple questions, and the site calculates the answer for you. In April 2013, we finished moving all departmental sites to gov.uk, together with the sites for Number 10 and the Deputy Prime Minister's office. So instead of every government page having a different design and different navigation, every site now looks and works the same way. At the same time, we've rethought how policy is presented online. Before gov.uk, if you wanted to understand government policy on something like gangs, for instance, you'd have needed to visit all these separate pages. Now, there's a single page for each policy, and all the departments involved share the responsibility for keeping it up to date. You can even subscribe to those policy pages so that you're always kept informed of any changes. And if you're responsible for a particular policy, you can find out how often it's being looked at and how closely it's being read. Today, gov.uk is handling more web traffic than the sites it replaced at a far lower cost, and users get to the information they need quicker than they did before. Gov.uk is not perfect, and it's not finished. It's never going to be. It's designed to improve, to react to user needs. We've made thousands of changes to gov.uk, and we make small improvements almost every day. This idea, iterative, responsive change, is at the heart of everything we do. You should visit us at www.gov.uk. Hopefully, you'll see something you like. Something simpler, clearer, and faster.
Okay, I have to speed up. Thank you. We won the Design Museum's Design of the Year award for that, which is quite amazing because you can't enter that for a start. They just nominate you. And we were up against things like Thomas Heatherwick's Olympic Cauldron and Renzo Piano's Shard and the dresses from the Anna Karenina film, which had won an Oscar. And we thought we had no chance whatsoever, but we won that, which is amazing and fantastic. For those of you that know the D&AD in the audience, we also won a D&AD black pencil for the writing, for the clarity of the writing, which again, for a government website to win an award for clarity of writing, is quite something. So what we're doing today, that was sort of a year ago. Well, firstly, there's been the sort of healthcare.gov crisis, I guess, in America. These are some things that people are saying around the world, about the work we're doing and how perhaps America should do a similar thing, which is fantastic. That's what the site looks like today. So we said we've made hundreds of changes every day. We've actually changed the design quite a lot in a year. We're making teeny little changes every day. So we get 7 million visitors a week, 600 people publish to it, write on it. As we bring more and more agencies and government departments into it, there's another 5,000 coming. We made 2,000 code releases in our first year. That's about 8 a day code changes we make to this thing. So it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. But the bit that I think you guys would be most interested in is the transactions. That's part 3 of Martha's report, what we call digital exemplars. There's 25 of those. They make up some of the biggest transactions in government, basically. If we do these 25 services, we'll have got something like 80% of touch like 80% of the country, something like that. We're going for the big ones. They're being done in 14 agencies and 8 departments round and about the country. Again, we believe in being open, so we publish as much as we can about this and about this work. The URL's there, it's just gov.uk/transformation. Tells you about all the services, tells you what state they're in, whether they're in alpha and beta, so on. There's a video coming up that I'm going to skip because we'll get a bit short on time. Now I'm going to hand over to Rohan. I just want to emphasise that he's showing you alphas and betas. This is, like work in progress, and I don't think stuff we've shown anyone before, but I thought it's important that you guys see this stuff, and Rohan tells you what it's really like. To Rohan.
Thank you, Ben. That was a really useful, insightful presentation into the world of GDS. And I think one of the things that kind of why I'm standing here today is that's spread out. So that started in the government digital service. That's now, as Ben said, spread out to all the agencies and departments. And we're fortunate in DVLA. We're only 40 miles down the road. We've got 3 of the digital exemplars, which are transforming the way that we are working. So just a quick run through of what we're doing at the moment. What we're doing is actually we're putting this. Those who've got a driving licence, there's 44 million in the UK. And if you're a UK driving licence holder, you've also got a bit of paper that goes with it. Now, I couldn't find mine today, and I'd have brought it with me. So one of the things we want to do is we want to actually get rid of those little bits of paper. We want to put the information that you've got online, so you can get access to the data whenever you need it. And you might need it for insurance, you might need it for your employer, or we might need it to prove who you are. So we started in January this year. Seems a lot longer ago than that, but it was just this year. And we started off with this basic idea that we need people to get into their driver records. So we started out thinking, enter your driver number, maybe enter your national insurance number, passport number to find you. So these are the prototypes that we actually did in Inception. We knew that we needed to present back the personal details. And we also wanted to kind of describe, well, what could you drive, or what were you entitled to drive? So we had these really huge pictures of motorbikes, which kind of said to you, yeah, you can ride a motorcycle. And we also had, if you are unfortunate enough to have ever been caught speeding or used a mobile phone when you're driving, you're going to get points on your record, and they last on there for they're valid for 3 years, and they stay on your record for 4. And obviously, currently they're presented on a bit of paper. We want to make that transparent, and it's available to you to view online, and if you ever need to prove that you've got a clean license, hopefully, then it's there. So we started off, and as you can see, this was just a stream of data. We just took this data out of what we've got on our record. It doesn't really tell you much about what you've actually been caught doing wrong. This was our very first showcase. So this was a really big thing for DVLA. We'd never done this kind of stuff before. We'd always thrown things over to developers, waited for them to develop, test it, and then launch. This is very much more in the agile, iterative way of doing things. So this was basically playing back what you've just seen to a wide audience. And we've got people like the Chief Executive there, Chief Operating Officer, and obviously the most important person, myself. But there's also, I don't know if any of you can notice, there's also an invisible man there, right in the centre. You can see straight through him into that lady's arm. So I don't know how that happened. That's perfect design, I think. It just emphasises that we're trying to be transparent, I guess. So we moved on then to the alpha, and that's gone through various stages. I'll flick through these screens quite quickly for brevity, but I think what the difference was here when we got to this stage is that we started to go out and test it with the users. So the screens you saw before, those are the kind of things, our own thoughts internally, this is how we think it could look. Isn't it great? It's full of jargon, nobody can understand it. So what we then did is we went out and tested it with a whole set of real users. And we've not just done that in Swansea, we've been around the country, we've been to London, Plymouth, Glasgow, Birmingham, we've got a whole breadth of different people. So this was the next one. So again, it kind of asks you, this is the introduction page. I'll just flick through these quickly, how you access the service. One of the initial feedback buttons was, where do I log out? So you've gone in, you're getting some quite secure and personal data, but you could click out and then that could be left on a browser. So really important feedback from the first kind of user testing we did, where do I log out? This one then, people were saying, well, yeah, I like the picture of the bike and everything, but what can I actually drive? The wording there says full entitlements. People didn't know what entitlement necessarily meant, and they didn't understand what the valid to and froms meant, because it maybe didn't match what their assumptions were. And again, then when you get to the penalty points, they were saying, well, what does endorsement mean? You know, endorsements are DVLA and a police and a courts kind of terminology. General public don't get that. So this is our beta version A, which we kind of launched in July. This is, I think, one of the first things, again, going back to the customer insight, these are two of our user testers. So they kind of test the service all the way through. We actually got a feed of the customer insight back to the team area. So this is, customer insight as a team sport. We got the developers, we got the testers watching actual users testing the service, and you can obviously, for those of you who are sharp-eyed, you can see the yellow dot there, you can see where people are kind of going around the journey, typical standard user testing. But it really gave them a great insight into understanding, yeah, that works or that doesn't, and they can actually see the real positive feedback that they've had from real users. So again, we've softened the language here now, so it says these are the vehicles you can drive, but it still says category A. We've lost the motorbike somewhere, I don't know where it's gone. So we need to kind of explain that a little bit better. And again, on the penalty points, people got what the penalty points were, but they didn't really know where they could go and get more information. And obviously, gov.uk has got a wealth of information if you need to know more. And again, we've got things like expiry. What do you mean by expiry? When do penalty points actually come off my record? And then this is the latest version of the beta. And again, what we've done through this is we've actually then, at this stage, we tested different designs. So we had the traditional design that we've evolved over a period of time. Oh, sorry, this is our agile wall. So I think, again, one of the things that this kind of changed within DVLA is this wasn't seen before. So any kind of design or any project would be, you'd be drowning really in reams of paper. So you'd have maybe 150 user requirements document. You'd have a system specification brief. You might have a functional requirement specification. And you think, well, what does that all mean? This is actually making things visible. You can track the progress of the stories, of the design through the progress. So, as I say, at this stage, we did some A/B testing. What we tried to do is try to do things a little bit differently. So, for the first time in DVLA's history, we actually did a customer survey using Twitter. So, we presented two screenshots, A and B, and we put a tweet out there and we asked people to kind of come back with their feedback. And again, it wasn't perfect. We've learned quite a lot of things from this. The screen sizes there weren't good enough. They weren't big enough for people to actually see what we wanted them to test. So there wasn't a way of kind of making those bigger. And again, we put a kind of traditional survey on the end of it, and people on Twitter don't really want to spend too much time filling in a survey with lots of questions. They just want to say, I like A, I like B. So we learn from that, and the next time we do it, we can improve. We also, at the same time, did an internal survey. We've got 5,000 staff all located in Swansea and DVLA. Most of them are drivers, so we tested it with them. And we also used the traditional customer insight panel. And actually the results we got back were quite similar, so it was around about a 50-50 split between the two designs. People generally liked both, which was quite reassuring. So what we've settled on is a kind of a mash of both, and it kind of uses some of the design principles that Ben has shown you there on gov.uk. Again, very clear, very simple, straightforward and easy to understand. And we've embedded all the good features that we've had from the previous versions all consolidated into one. So we've got that kind of description if you need it, but you've got the clarity on what you can drive there very much up front. And again, with the penalty points, we're also explaining how many penalty points you've got. So rather than saying there's like 3 or 4 ones, you've got to try and work it out for yourself. Makes it very obvious and apparent. And we're hoping to launch the beta in February next year. So for those of you who've got a UK driver licence, I'd very much encourage you to look on gov.uk, access your record, make sure the details are all up to date. If you have, unfortunately, like me, got some penalty points on there, you can then see when they're due to come off. Just as a final thought for me, what that's kind of doing for us is it's not just about presenting the information that's on your driver licence, it's very much the first stage to transforming the way that you interact with services with DVLA. So we'll build on this. One of the later versions that we'll be looking at then is if you notice that things are wrong on your record, say for example your address is out of date, we'll then give you the facility to update that there and then, and it's almost a customer account model that we're building around the driver licence, rather than the traditional method of having to send bits of paper into a big organisation, waiting for a few weeks for it to be updated and coming back out to you. So it's just a quick run through of what we're doing. I'll now hand you back to Ben to summarise.
Thank you. I should have said at the start, Rohan and I are both civil servants. We're not consultants, we're not external people that have been brought in. This work is mostly being done by civil servants in government. That's, as Rohan was showing you there, that's agile software development, service design at scale, right across government in all those departments. And that's just the very start of what we can do and where we think this thing can go. We've published that, you should look at that, jot the URL, I haven't got enough time to tell you about it. So what we're trying to do is make digital services so good that people prefer to use them. People prefer to use a digital one rather than a paper one because they know it's going to be simple and easy and clear to use. Just a few weeks ago, one of the other things we launched with the Ministry of Justice is the licensing power of attorney. So if typically your parents become seriously ill or incapacitated, you can swap the power of attorney over to you so you can take care of their financial affairs and stuff. I just want to show you this because I think this is fantastic. This is basically the back-end system screen for the people in the call centres, and they have a call centre and they take loads of inquiries for this, and it's mostly how do I do this, how do I do that, or people in tears saying this is wrong. It's a very stressful time in their lives. After we only launched the service about 2 months ago in a beta, and about 3 or 4 weeks after we launched it, they had to add a button to the screen in the call centre that was just for positive feedback. They have to mark down what every call is for. You can see their guidance reporting issue. They have to mark down what it's for. They were getting so many phone calls just saying, thank you, this is great. They had to add a button to mark it as positive feedback, which is absolutely fantastic. We want more of that. We've still got loads and loads to do. So we need people. If you can read that, what that says, come and see me at the coffee break or the lunch break. That's it. Thank you very much.